member for Macarthur, and I give the call to the member for Dunkley.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Like the member for Macarthur, I have a peri-urban electorate. I'm not sure my koalas are quite as famous as the member for Macarthur's koalas, but we do see the odd koala at the Langwarrin Flora and Fauna Reserve. And I have seen both a tiger snake and a tawny frogmouth in my own backyard, and needless to say, there's one of those I was happy to see. Like many electorates, whether they be urban, peri-urban, regional or rural, the people in my electorate care deeply about the environment, both the local environment and more broadly about Australia's environment, and what we have always been incredibly proud of, which is our native flora and fauna. I was trying to think of a way to describe how integral to Australians' sense of being Australian our flora and fauna is. I came up with the suggestion that Crocodile Dundee wasn't necessarily popular for the acting as much as, well, yeah, not everyone in the chamber agrees with that statement, but I'll carry on. As for the acting, as much as for a depiction of an Australia that Australians, no matter where they live in the country, no matter how long they've been here, born here, come here, inherently think of as Australia. You know, that the outback, the native animals, you know, slightly outdated sexist man, but apart from that, the environment that somehow is just a part of all of us. And as I said, you know, people in my electorate care about that and identify with the Australian environment, as do people across the country. Here's just two small examples of what we're doing in Dunkley, or what locals are doing in Dunkley because they care about the environment. Of course, those who have the longest connection to the environment, and it's about culture as much as it is about where they live, are our First Nations people. Ben was kind enough to talk to me about a program operating in my community and the surrounding region called the Warreen Beak Rangers Course. Warreen Beak means saltwater people in the local language. It's a training program for Indigenous rangers developed with the Bunurong and Wiradjuri land councils, and collaboration between a lot of other groups, including Holmes Glen TAFE, Trust for Nature. The course was developed as there was a lack of trained people to work as land management practitioners, and it was consultation with community members that led to the idea of starting a course, because we are not only tapping in to First Nations connection with the land, but also giving people qualifications that allow them to use that connection as part of a career. Rangers in the program are learning to care for country. It is a course that's designed specifically with and for traditional owners and Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples to learn the skills to work on country, providing accredited training in areas such as pest plant control, revegetation, construction, chainsaw use, occupational health and safety, and cultural studies. It's a hands-on approach that provides a culturally safe space for people to learn together and is actively improving the local environment. So students in the course have worked in coastal areas, on properties that have conservation covenants, provide landholders with a chance to understand traditional knowledge, and students learning land care skills such as plant identification and threatened species conservation techniques. I mean, this is the sort of program that this Albanese government wants to invest in and support, and is a really concrete example of commitment to environment being delivered by local communities with First Nations, with and for First Nations people. Something I think that is a tangible example, of course, of what The Voice will accomplish if we get that referendum through later this year. The second example I wanted to tell the chamber about in terms of my community's commitment to the environment and sustainability is the Frankston High School Eco Team, who I've had a lot to do with the different students that have come through in the 4 years I've been in this place and the few years before I was elected, and who are always looking for ways to improve the environment around their school, but also the sustainability of not just their school, but the broader community, in the knowledge that climate change and threats to biodiversity are the existential threat to their future. So these exceptional young people came and spoke to Paul Edbrook, the member for Frankston, and myself recently about the need for better environmental education in schools, to embed education about sustainability across all courses, so you're not just learning about it if you are studying geography, so that's part of science and English and home tech and all of the subjects that everyone does. They learn about environment and sustainability and how the subjects impact those concepts, but also how those concepts can enhance the subject. And then they had an incredibly detailed and impressive submission about the policies of the Education Department about protecting the environment and sustainability, showing how they were vague and lacked enforcement, and asking why, as their school is going through a renovation because of investment by the state government, there weren't stricter standards on sustainability and protection of the environment when building public school facilities. I don't think you could get smarter or more involved young people than the Frankston High School economics team, who are actively taking a role in looking after the environment for their futures, but also for the people that come after them. And we know that we now have a government that's committed to protecting 30% of Australia's land and seas by 2030. These are the goals that were adopted globally under the United Nations Convention on Biological Diversity, and they're the goals that this piece of legislation is looking to help us reach. And of course the goals reinforce the findings of the 2021 State of the Environment report in Australia, which was an incredibly disturbing report with a story of environmental degradation, loss and inaction. How could it be the case in a country where the environment, the flora and fauna, are deeply embedded in our national psyche, that we could have lost more mammal species to extinction than any other continent? How could it be the case that in a country where we almost venerate the wattle, the banksia, all of our local plant species, that Australia has more foreign plant species than native species now in the country? How could it be the case? In just short of 2 decades in this century alone, habitat the size of Tasmania has been cleared. And we know that plastics are choking our oceans, with about 80,000 pieces of plastic per square kilometre. I'm not even making a political point. It's really just the point that this is where we're at in this country. And we can't be a country that sees ourselves as unique in the world because of our landscapes and our waterways and our animals, and yet do nothing to protect them, or not do enough to protect them. So it's why I'm really pleased about this government's nature positive plan and the establishment of the nature repair market. We have an Environment Minister who, I think if anyone embodies the saying, hit the ground running, it has to be the Environment Minister, who hasn't wasted a minute getting on with the job of saying, what legislative measures do we need, what oversight measures do we need, what role can we play in the international community to not just protect what we have left, but try to restore some of what we've lost? And that's what's really important. And this nature repair market doesn't just protect what we've got, it also helps us restore what we've lost. Harnessing business and private sector investment, working so that landholders, farmers, First Nations communities can play their role in planting native species, repairing damaged riverbeds and removing invasive species. all the speakers before me have talked about what this legislation does, so there's nothing sort of new or revelatory in what I'm saying about it. But the structure of this scheme is really important. It's fundamentally important that the Clean Energy Regulator is going to have that regulatory role. You know, it's fundamentally important that there is going to be transparency and integrity in the scheme. We have to make sure that there's not greenwashing, which it just boggles my mind, really, that corporations would like to pretend that they're doing something to the environment but not actually do it. Because if you know that you need to pretend, then you know there's a moral imperative, you know that it matters to people, but you still don't care enough to actually do it. But anyway, so that's why it's really important that the ACCC and ASIC are going to have a role in ensuring that certificates under this market aren't really greenwashing. I am proud to be part of a government that wants to do things differently. I am proud of a government that wants to act swiftly. And I invite the members of the opposition to be part of that. We do stand here and make partisan remarks, and we have talked about the 10 years under those opposite, which we see as marked with wasted opportunities and neglect. But maybe let's put that behind us for this and say, let's move forward. Let's have some bipartisanship about moving forward, about something that, when it comes down to it, surely we all care about. We all care about protecting Australia's unique environment. You know, surely we can't have an argument about encouraging biodiversity and all it represents. I'd be surprised if there was an argument about using a market system to do so. I would have thought those on the other side would have been right up for that sort of mechanism. So let's put some cudgels down for once. The Minister for Aged Care is slightly sceptical about that approach. I just mean about this right now. Let's put the cudgels down about going forward. Here's this legislation. Here's an opportunity to start being part of a cooperative approach to protecting what matters the most, which is somewhere healthy, safe, beautiful for us all to live in and our children and grandchildren to live in. Because if we don't have that, the rest of it isn't going to matter very much. Thank you, Deputy Speaker.
The question is that the